Eastlake got into years ago before I became mayor was a COPS program. And at that time, the stipulation on the grant was you can hire, we'll give you hundreds of thousands of dollars to hire policemen, which is a good thing, but we're only going to pay their salary for 3 years, and then salary and benefits, and then you have to absorb that into your budget. Well, it was not good, because when the 3 years came up, we didn't have the money to absorb the policemen that we hired. So that's an example of where I would not apply for a grant because the strings attached were not very good. In the second round of COPS grants that came around, they tailored that a little bit more now so that where you don't have to necessarily put them on your budget as long as they replaced people that are leaving. So you do have to watch with the strings. Yeah?
Another question that pertains to commissioners who talked about a proposal to raise the county portion of the local government fund from 11% up to 30%. You're currently in the position of being on the city end and running for the commissioner end. What are your thoughts on that proposal?
Absolutely, positively a ridiculous thing. I just couldn't believe it. When I read that, and when some of my other mayor friends, we read it and we talked on the phone, we're thinking, what are these guys thinking? The governor just cut 50% of the local government fund to the cities, the townships, the villages, the schools, and now you want to take more from us after just raising the sales tax a 0.5%? Come on. So, no, unacceptable. And for those of you in the audience, it's not going to happen because the largest city in the county, Mentor, has to approve it. Mentor's not going to approve it. And then 12 out of the 23 municipalities have to approve it, and we're not going to approve it. So we couldn't understand the thinking. To answer your question directly, I adamantly oppose that. There's no reason for it. They should not even have brought that up. And as commissioner, I would absolutely never bring that up.
In general, what are your thoughts on cost containment for county government? And what would you do?
Yeah, the cost containment would be similar to what we've done in Eastlake, and that is there's a good way and a not so good way to do it. So first of all, I think the suggestion by the county commissioners now was a good one, where you start looking at the departments and see what you can consolidate and what jobs you can cross-train on. You also have to understand another thing, and that is to eliminate positions. Say, for example, I'm not picking on a particular department, but let's say you wanted to eliminate the county recorder's position. That has to be done through the state legislature. But certainly that's one you could combine the county recorder, the clerk of courts, and the auditor's office into one. Or maybe the auditor and the treasurer into one, and the clerk of courts and the recorder into another. So I would pursue with the state legislatures, what do we have to do, and the other county commissioners around the state, what do you have to do to allow the departments to be combined? Now, the second thing you can do, and it is a way to reduce the size of government without hurting people too much, and that is when someone leaves, when they retire, or when they take another job, or whatever, whenever they leave government, you don't replace them. It's called attrition, and you continue to reduce the size of county government through attrition. That way you don't hurt someone by having a mass layoff.
Okay, I have a final question for me. What are your objectives in running for county commissioner? What would you do?
First of all, as I've stated before, I would be an advocate for the cities, the villages, the townships, and make sure that if it's a county expense, that it's paid for by the county and not shifted to the local municipalities. We've already had enough shifted to us, and what happens when it's shifted to the cities, the taxpayers ultimately bear the burden of that, because ultimately either we have to have a cutback in service or you have to go to an increase to the local people. So the county's responsible for it, county got to pay for it. The other thing I would make sure is that every dollar is spent wisely. I'm known in Eastlake as someone who really digs in, asks a lot of questions, wants to know where this money's going, where that's money going. and I will do the same in county government. Ask a lot of questions, look at the various departments, go out there and see how things operate and dig in and understand what's going on and where the money's going to make sure that every nickel is given back to the taxpayers.
Okay, now we'll take some questions from the audience.
I can't see anybody out there. It is.
We got one, we'll just have to wait a minute. Okay.
Thanks for this opportunity. I've been sitting here listening to the local candidates talk about the local government fund and what an awful thing it is that the state has cut back on it and that the county commissioners want more of it. And I'm thinking about the concept of local government fund, and it seems to me, I'm a resident of Mentor, which means I have an input in what the Mentor government does with my money that I pay in taxes. I have input into what Lake County does with my money that I pay in taxes. And I have an input into part of what the state of Ohio does with my money that I pay in taxes. But some of my money goes to the state of Ohio. They take out a handler's fee and they slap a sticker on it that says, gift to the citizens of Ohio, and it goes all over the state, the local government, that I have no input on how they use my money. I don't even know what they do with my money. Why should the system continue?
All right, let me see if I understand your question. Your question is, why should the local government system, local government fund system continue?
Yes.
Okay, because every resident of Lake County pays a state's income tax. Anywhere, I don't know what the top rate is, but we pay a good amount of money to the state of Ohio. And what is returned to the cities from the state of Ohio? Think about this. Think about your own households in your cities. What do you get for this, from the state of Ohio for the thousands of tax dollars that you send to Columbus? The only thing you get is the local government fund given back to you. Now, the local government fund goes into the general fund of the city. It pays for police and fire, service department employees. It goes back to the people as far as services. So it's the only thing we get, and the schools get it too. The schools get the local government fund, and they were hurt by that too. So some of the money is returned to the schools to keep those, hopefully keep those tax dollars, tax increases down. So to answer your question, it's the only thing we get back that we could put a handle on to use for the benefit of the cities.
So why wouldn't it be a better idea to not pay those dollars to the state, not let them take their handler's fee out of it, keep the dollars here and pay them directly in local taxes, or maybe pay even less in local taxes and be able to have some control over how our money is spent?
I would absolutely agree with that. The system right now does not allow that. And if we could change the system through the state, again, we got to go back to the state legislators, the senators, and the state representatives. They have to change the way the money is collected and then distributed back. But I agree with you. I would lower the state sales or state income tax and then give it back to the cities. And the other thing is with the sales tax. Cities, villages get zero of the sales tax. The county gets some, but most of it, again, goes to the state of Ohio.
Any others? We have
Another question here.
Yes, on the issue of regionalism, you indicated that you all for it. You confused me a little bit in regards to the stormwater management system, whereby you allocate so many dollars and they give back to you what they would want to deem necessary. So isn't that one countering the other? In my opinion, regionalism is another centralization of government, which I live in Willoughby. I don't want my tax dollars given to Wilwick or Wycliffe or whatever. You're centralizing government, and now we're under another bureaucracy.
Well, okay, I understand your question. I'm going to answer that two ways. Let's take the stormwater management first. That is a program that was mandated by the federal government. Every city has to have a stormwater management program. Willoughby did not join the county either, for the very same reason I believe that we did, and that's because we would be giving East Lake dollars to the county who then would decide what projects in the county to give it to.